Two players have won 2 titles in as many weeks, and neither of them is called Roger Federer or Rafael Nadal. Miracles happen. Hello and welcome back to the tennis vlog. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. So after a few weeks of tournaments left, right and centre, the Asian swing settled into a more organised state last week, with the WTA Tour heading to Beijing for their final premier tournament of the season, and the ATP spreading themselves out across Beijing and Tokyo for 2 500 events. And there was no better time for WTA Player of the Week Caroline Garcia to make her breakthrough. It is a rarity, actually an unknown, for any WTA player to win back-to-back premier events at this point in time, let alone their maiden premier title wins. Garcia frankly hadn't done much at all this season prior to the Asian swing. After being heralded as a star of the future in her late teens, she was kind of lost among a sea of new, younger talent in the last couple of years, as she excelled in doubles and didn't do particularly well in singles, was kind of mediocre. She was ranked around the 20 mark from the beginning of the grass court season until a couple of weeks ago at the beginning of Wuhan, but to be honest, there were players outside the top 50 who were getting talked about more than herself. Even her run to the French Open quarterfinals was overshadowed by that of her countrywoman, the more outspoken and more informed Kristina Mladenovic. But over the past couple of weeks, Garcia has really seized her opportunity, and the most impressive thing for me has been her mentality during this. Seemingly out of nowhere, she had a shot at qualifying for the Elite 8-player field in Singapore at the end of the year, and unlike other players, especially younger players like herself, she didn't wobble in the face of opportunity. In contrast, she served bigger, ramped up the consistency, and didn't let whoever was across the net distract her, whether they were well known or whether they were someone capable of an upset. Wins over Angelique Kerber and Dominika Cibulkova in Wuhan weren't overwhelming, given the current form of both these women. However, in Beijing, she mowed down Elina Svitolina, Petra Kvitova and Simona Halep for the loss of a single set. Svitolina was the most consistent WTA player on tour for the first half of the year. Kvitova is a lethal and near unstoppable force on her day, and Halep had just gained the world #1 ranking, so that is an impressive list of players to take down for her second premier title in as many weeks. Over with the ATP, I have to award a Player of the Fortnight and a Player of the Week in order to give credit where credit is due. Because while Rafael Nadal was Player of the Week, reasons for which I will soon explain, David Goffin embarks on a 2-tournament winning run that has to be given recognition. Lost in a wild season was the shattering end to Goffin's French Open campaign. This is going back to end of May now. He was ranked number 12 heading into the second Grand Slam of the season and was carrying some really decent form. However, he slipped on the tarpaulin at the side of the court during his third round match, hurt his ankle and had to retire. He didn't return to tour again until after Wimbledon. Since his return, he hadn't really got any momentum going, but then suddenly he goes and wins a 250 title in Shenzhen and a 500 event in Tokyo in back-to-back weeks. Did he face incredibly resistant fields? I would say no. His highest ranked opponent in Shenzhen was the world number 53, and in Tokyo the world number 29. But Alexander Dolgopolov and Feliciano Lopez have slain their fair share of giants in their time and can play lethal and slick tennis on their day, and then we have Adrian Manarino and Diego Schwartzman, who are currently enjoying career best seasons. And of course, Richard Gasquet is a former Grand Slam semi-finalist, so it's not like he went unchallenged at all. As a result of his recent winning run, Goffin is now ranked world number 10, a career high, and is well on track to qualify for London. Nothing guaranteed, but he's looking in a good place right now. So then we come to Player of the Week, Rafael Nadal, who demolished Nick Kyrgios in the China Open final for his 75th career title. The two were tied at 2-all in their head-to-head before that encounter. The title of my last video questioned whether Nadal was growing weary towards the end of a very successful season. Personally, I feel like his win over Lucas Pouille in round 1 might have decided the course of the rest of his season. Officially, he hadn't lost a match since before the US Open and looked a little slow off the mark against the Frenchman, who had famously beaten Nadal on a big stage before and was really up for the occasion. Naturally raising his game, he was hitting his marks with great pace and depth, and if Nadal hadn't saved both the match points he faced in the second set, it could have been the start of a wobbly Asian swing for the Spaniard. Even in his dominant 2013 season, it was this period of the year where his game took a little bit of a knock. But he raised his level when it mattered most and he fought to the victory, and for the rest of the tournament he didn't really have to fight that much at all during wins over Karen Khachanov, John Isner, Grigor Dimitrov and Nick Kyrgios. That's a pretty impressive list of victories. Two of those men are very much in contention for London spots. Isner beat him at the Laver Cup exhibition event only recently. Khachanov has big heavy ground strokes and a game that copes well in the conditions that the Asian swing brings. The ATP field was certainly depleted this season, there's no doubt about it, but Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal don't have the most Grand Slam titles and status as all-time greats for no reason. They are perfect examples of how two extreme styles of tennis can really dominate this sport, and if they continue to play anything close to their best tennis, then they should conceivably dominate the rest of the season as they have done for the 9 previous months. And finally we come to controversy of the week, which is not, I will quickly mention, Simona Halep gaining the world #1 ranking, although that is involved. I think a couple of months ago I did a video after Karolina Pliskova had reached the world #1 ranking, saying about maybe how a system should be put in place to prevent players getting to that title without claiming a Grand Slam trophy. Because there are players in the past, Caroline Wozniacki, who occupied the top spot for a couple of years, Jelena Jankovic, who have got to the pinnacle of the rankings and have received a lot of stick because they haven't had any of the most prestigious titles under their belt. I do feel that if you are ranked on top of the world, then you should be winning the world's best titles. But today I'm not going to nitpick. I still don't think there should be players at world #1 that don't have Grand Slam titles. However, Simona Halep has one of the best work ethics on tour. She and her coach Darren Cahill have a brilliant partnership that they have kept going through some really tough losses, showing the belief they have in it. They have a great attitude, and if anyone deserved to get to the top of the rankings, it's Halep and Cahill. The real controversy I want to look at is something I came across quite by accident. I came across an article titled "Serena May Lack Intimidation Factor, Says US Tennis Great Evert," obviously talking about Chris Evert, winner of 18 Grand Slam titles. I looked at it with interest. I thought I was actually going to read an article talking seriously and with valid points about Serena losing some of her intimidating aura, coming back to the tour after having given birth, being a mother. I can't remember if I read the whole thing because I was turned off before the end of the third paragraph, sorry. Because in the third paragraph we read this: Evert said standards in women's tennis had risen this year since Williams stepped off the tour, warning that the 36-year-old would be returning to a more competitive environment. Really? I really don't know if we've been watching the same tour. I have watched a handful of really quality women's tennis matches this year, but I have watched a heck of a lot more that I would not choose to spend my free time watching. There is a real lack of consistency. It's not so much about who hits the most winners in a match as who hits the least unforced errors. This season, the WTA Tour has seen 5 different world #1s, and 2 of those world #1s do not have a Grand Slam title to their name, and 3 of those world #1s traded the spot within 3 or 4 months of each other. In order for that to happen, the amount of ranking points that each player at the top of the rankings possesses has to be a fair bit lower than it would usually be, and basically from my own observations of the game, it's just been a lot more inconsistent, players unable to hold a position of dominance. Players such as Halep in the clay court season and Muguruza later on in the year have shown they have what it takes to go on a winning run, to string together some really good results. However, for both of them, it can turn on its head in a moment against whatever player. So maybe it will be a more competitive tour, but has the standard in women's tennis risen this year? From my own personal observations, I don't think so. Let me know if you disagree, give me your reasoned arguments, I am more than happy to read them and to discuss with you, but I think Evert's got it a bit wrong on this one. Okay, so be sure to keep an eye on the tennis this week. Over with the WTA we have 3 international events going on in Hong Kong, Tianjin and Linz, and with the ATP we have a big Masters 1000 event taking place in Shanghai. Nadal tops the seeds again and Federer is back in action as the 2nd seed. Alexander Zverev, the 3rd seed, qualified for London last week, meaning there are 5 places still up for grabs. This is a key week for getting ranking points. Thank you for watching and I'll see you at the next video.